Okay, so if we go to the npm website, we see some things which is written over here, build amazing things and stuff like that. So if we talk about like what is npm, so npm stands for node package manager. It is a default package manager for node. And what is a package manager? It manages the packages which are also called dependencies, which we use in our applications. It could be a React app, it could be an Angular app, it could be a Vue app, it could be a Node app. So we need some dependencies, and npm helps us to install those dependencies and use it. So it generally consists of two parts, like a CLI part and an online repo. So what you see here right now is the online repo, where you get uh, like a loads of packages uh, available here, which does help you every time you work on JavaScript. So let's say we have a package called React. So this package is if you install this package, you will get to use the functions which are available, the classes which are available in React. And second is the CLI. So CLI stands for command line interface. So CLI helps us to install, update, and start, and uninstall all the packages in our app. So this is kind of a brief introduction about npm. I have a great uh, article on npm, so I'll share it after this uh, session. Okay, so so let's start with React then. So if we open the reactjs.org website, the official website of React, we can see that it's a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So if we try to get the meaning of this sentence, so we React is a JavaScript library, and it is used for building user interfaces. So if you have ever worked on like an MVC app, the model view controller app, so we can call React as the view of that particular app. So you can create views, you can create UIs using React, and it's a JavaScript library. So what is a library? It's a bunch of functions which are used, which are like a library is a plug and play, a kind of thing like jQuery, if you have heard of. So you can plug it anywhere, you can use the functions, and you can perform the task. You can use it anywhere. So other than that, it's declarative, it's component based, learn once, write anywhere. So what is component based? So component based is like you create components. So let's say you have a app, you have to create this particular screen over here. So you can have a component of a nav bar. This you can create a component for this header. You can create a component for all this text, and when you combine all of the components, you will get an app. Okay. uh, and so you can you so by making components, you can you can use reusability, you can achieve reusability, and you can do a lot most of your look in our upcoming lectures. So okay, so how do we get started with React? So first of all, we need a code editor, let's say VS Code, and we'll be needing a terminal. So as I said that we have npm CLI, which performs which is used to install and uninstall the packages. So we have a package called create react app, if you have heard of it. Create react app. Okay, here is the package. Okay, so this create React app is like the boilerplate code for your React app. So it is created by Facebook. So what you have to do is that you just have to install it and you have to run it. Every dependency which is used to run a React app, the basic dependencies are installed here. You can view what all dependencies are there here. And so how can we do that? So we have an installation command as well, like npm I create React app. So what we'll do is that we have a folder and we'll create, let's say, npx create React app, and we'll name our folder, we'll name our project, let's say bootcamp, uh, bootcamp, let's say bootcamp. Okay, so what it will do is that it will start downloading the all the dependencies which that particular package has. So these all dependencies are already will be downloaded and installed. As you can see here, it starts downloading. So we have to wait for some time. Meanwhile, if you look at React, so there are some basic concepts in React like state and props. We have JSX, which is called JavaScript XML. We have uh, we have types of components. We can create several types of components, which include functional components, class-based components. We'll look at that. And uh, once it gets installed, we'll look what is the folder structure, what all files do we get when we use create React app, and what all are the dependencies we get. And we have a special file called package.json which we get when we install when we use node npm. So yeah, it gets okay, let me open it. T5 bootcamp, and yeah, so if you can see that we have three folders here. First is node module, second is public, and third is src, which is source. Other than that, we have .git ignore, which is which is used by the Git. If you don't want to, don't want Git to track any of your file or folder, you can add the path of it inside it. So Git will ignore that particular file or folder. Now, what I'm talking about is the package.json. This is the file which is created when you use npm node package manager. So what this file contains is the information about your project. So let's say the name of your project is bootcamp, the version is 0.1 private. This is let's skip this. Now we have dependencies. So what are dependencies? Dependencies are the packages which are used by this project. So these dependencies have some functions which can be used in which are used in our project somewhere. So we have some testing library dependencies. We have a package called React. So this is how you can run a React app. So we have React DOM, React scripts to run the React project. We have Web Vitals, and then we have scripts. So for using the npm command line, we have to write some scripts, we have to use some scripts. So to start a project, we have written a script called start, and if you run this script start, it will call React script start. So React script itself has a script called start, which will perform some action when you run this app. We have build, we have test, we have eject, and there are some other dependencies as well. So this is the package.json, which includes all the information about your project. Now we have this folder called node modules, which is a huge folder. So all the modules including these dependencies are installed here. We already have these dependencies, and we have a public folder in which we have a, ICO file. We have a index.html file. We have some PNGs. We have some manifest.json. We have robot.txt. Next up, we have src source folder in which we have CSS file, app.js, test.js, index.css, index.js, and several other files. So before going through all these files, let's start the app and look how our app looks. So to run a React app, what we have to write is that, as we can see here in our package.json, to start we have to start the React app, we have to use the start script. So to use it, we just have to write npm. If you can't see, let me just, so npm space start. So it will call the React script start, and it will start running, it will start your server. So you have to wait for like a minute or so to start. Yeah. So by default, your React app runs on localhost 3000 port. If you want to change this port, you have to write, you have to specify the port here. Okay. And yeah, so our app is working fine. We can see this React logo, and it says that edit src/app.js2 and save to reload. So we have a feature in React called hot reload. So whenever you change and save, it will automatically reload things for you. You don't have to manually write npm start every time. So uh, so let's go to src and app.js. So if we go to app.js, we see a bunch of code which I don't know why it's written over here. And so what we'll do is that we'll just select all the code and we'll remove the code and we'll write from the scratch. So what we'll do is that rcc, this is a snippet, code snippet for for creating a React component, for writing the initial code. So here we have a return import React and component from React. So we have a package called React, and we are importing some files or some functions or some classes from this particular module. Then we have export default, we have class, and we have the name of the class. If you are coming from Java background, this is very much familiar to you. Class app, which is the name of our component, and it extends the component class from React. Okay. So, and then we have render. It's a method, and this method returns something. So let's say it returns HTML for now. What? So hello, I am React. So as soon as I hit Control S, it automatically gets compiled, and I can see. Okay, just give me a second. I have to change the logo. Where is the logo? Okay, yeah. So everything has gone, and now whatever we have written over here, uh, it is rendered. Hello, I am React. So if you can see that we have a component called app.js, which we can say is the entry point for our React app. So but browser only understands HTML. It only has the like it only renders the HTML file, right? So where is the HTML file? So if you go to public, if if you go to, if you can see index.html file over here, and we have some stuff written over here. And so it's a basic HTML file. You can see that we have a body, we have head, title, then we have body, then we have a div called div which has an ID of root. This is the div where all your app gets injected. Now from where this our app gets injected, so we have a corresponding JS file for this index.html, which is somewhere here. Yeah, here. So here we have React. We have imported React. We have imported React DOM. We have imported our app component. So we have a class called React DOM, which has a method called render, and it takes two parameters. First is the app component which you have created, and second is the ID of that particular div to be injected on. So as we have seen on our very first lecture of JavaScript, we can use get element by ID to manipulate to dynamically add the data into HTML element. So this is how it's working. So you have a root ID root, and your app is injecting on that particular div. Okay. So we have app.js. Now let's say, so we understood what is index.html. It's just to inject the our app into this div. We have the index.js, and then the entry point of our React app is the app.js. So till now, anyone have any questions you can ask? Okay. Okay. So let's see what now what is JSX. So JSX, so whatever you write inside the return, it is called JSX. So why it is called JSX? Right now it is looking similar to HTML, but what you can do is that you can declare a variable called name, which is this my name, and add I can add a variable inside this. I can concat a variable. So here, this is the feature of like JSX. You can add any variable, any dynamic variable using curly braces. So you just have to write the curly braces, and you have to write the name of the variable, and it gets concated. So this is called JSX. It's similar to HTML, but you can just concat the JavaScript as well. Now let's go to state. So if we talk about state, so we create multiple components in React, right? So we have app.js component. We can have a list component. We can have an input component. So we can have multiple components in our app, right? So each component should have its own storage, a container where you can store the related to the data related to that particular component. So what React gave us is the state. So you have a state of that particular component which can be used locally into that component, and you can use it anywhere in your JSX. You can use it anywhere inside the render function, and you can even mutate it. You can even change that state. So how do we write the state? So to write the state, first we have to declare write a constructor props will come on to props after the state. We have super keyword. So super is used to access the functions, the methods of the parent class. And then we have this dot state. So this is the local state for this particular app component. So whatever I write here, let's say I want to write the name here. So my name is, let's say, Devesh. So this will be this state will be visible, this state will be accessible once the constructor is called, and the constructor is the very first thing which is called when the class is loaded, when your app is loaded. So it will be available for me every time when my app component gets loaded. So instead of using let variable or a variable, what I can do is that I can have a state, I can have a, and it's a key value pair. So it's a key and there is the value. You can assign a number to it. So let's say my age is 26. So I can assign a number to it. I can add let's say array as well here. So I can add array, even I can assign functions to it. We'll see how can we add functions here. So to access this state, you have to specify which key you have to access. You cannot access the whole state at a time. Let's say we have to access name from this particular state. So what we'll do is that we'll write this dot state dot the name of your key, the name of your state. So the name of my state is name. So if I save it, I should get my name. Yeah. So this is how you can access the state. Okay. And if you access the wrong name, it should give you an error, or it doesn't give you an error, but it doesn't shows you the value since you don't have that particular state. So this is how state works. To access the state, you have to use this dot state dot name, whatever the key, the name of your state is. Now let's say what I want to do is that I have let's say I take an input of type text. Now uh, what we can do is that whatever I write in this particular input, let's first look at the input first. So we have the input, right? I can write any value here. So what we can do is that whatever I write here, it should be shown here. Okay, it should change whatever I write dynamically. So how we can do it? So as I said in the JavaScript that if you do anything in your browser, it is an event, right? So for this particular input, we have an event called on change, right? And in this on change, we have to call a function. So let's say we have a function called handle input change. Okay. And so to handle this on change handler, so handle, sorry, handle input change, and it gives us an event. Okay. So event, and we can, let's console log the event first. So event, and we have a target. So our target is this input, and event dot target dot value. So to access what we are writing here, we have to write event dot target dot value. Okay. So let's just console log it first, and let's see what is happening. Are we getting something or not? So if I go to console and let me write devess. So yeah, I am getting whatever I'm writing here, right? So this is how event works in React. So you have an event called all change. You can either call a function, you can write anything, and you have to, if you want to use JavaScript here, so you have to use curly braces. Okay. So to call a function, I have used curly braces, and I have called this particular function, which gives me an event, and I am extracting value from it. Okay. So now what we have to do is that let's say whatever I write here, it should be visible here. So let's give it an initial value of blank. Okay, so it should be blank. Okay, now what we can do is that uh, we need to update this name whenever we write in this input. Whatever we write, it needs to be updated into this name state. Okay, so to update, to mutate the state, we have a method called set state method. So to use set state, we have to write this dot set state. It's a method and it takes an object. Okay, now in this particular object we have to pass uh, the key value, the key which is needed to be updated, and the value which gets updated into that state. So our key is the name. Okay, and our value is event dot target dot value. Okay, just so what we have written here is that set state, as the name suggests, it sets that state. So we have an initial state which is blank. Now whatever we are writing here, we are updating this state into this key. Okay, so if we go here and let's see, let's write Devesh. Yeah, so it's working. Let's write Adin. It's also working. Let's write some random name. Let's say John Joey, and it's working just fine. So, and how it is doing is that whenever you call the set state method, whenever you update the state, your component gets re-rendered. Okay, your component gets updated, and it is because of the virtual DOM. So we have read about we have learned about the DOM, right? Document Object Model, which is a tree-like structure of your HTML. Okay, so what React does is that it creates a virtual DOM, which is the replica of your actual DOM. So it creates a virtual DOM, the replica of your real DOM, and whatever we updates, it gets updated to the virtual DOM. Okay, now when you save, React compares your virtual DOM with your browser's DOM, which is the original DOM, and if it finds any changes, it will re-render that particular node. So let's say we have changed this HTML over here. So what it will do is that it will render this particular node. It will change the update this particular node. Rest everything is fine. So every time you use set state, your component gets re-rendered and you get to see the updated value, right? Now this is called state. So we have seen what is app.js. We have created a component. We have used state. We have used a on change handler as well to handle the change in an input. So okay, now let's take an example of a click event. So we can have a button and it says click me. Okay, uh, so here's the button. Okay, now whenever we click on this button, uh, the value should increase by 1. So we have a counter. So let's take a state called counter and initialize its value to 0. So whenever we click on this button, this counter should update, should add 1 in this counter. So how we can do this? So we have a event called on click, and this on click, what we can do is that we can call a function handle click. Okay, and let's write handle click here. and let's just check if it's working. So let me right click here. Okay, and if I refresh it and if I click on it, yeah, it's working fine. So we are getting console object. Okay, now what we need to do is that whenever we click on this counter, the value of the counter should be increased by 1. So how we can do is that we can use this dot set state method. Okay, and we need to update counter, and since we have the last value as 0, we can update this value. So what we'll do is that we can access this using this dot state dot counter, and we can add 1 to it. Okay, so let's say we have 0 as the initial value. So 0 plus 1 is 1. Now next time when I click, I will get 1 when I access this dot state dot counter, and plus 1 will get added, so it will become 2. So let's save it, and let's write an h1 and write this dot state dot counter. Okay, so initially we'll see 0, which is right over here, 0, and when we click on it, it should get updated by 1. Okay, so let's click it once. Yeah, it's working fine. It should get 2 when I click once again. Yeah, it's working fine. So how many times I am clicking, the value gets updated by 1. Okay, so this is how you handle a click event, right? Okay, so we have seen handlers as well. So now let's see what is props. So we have seen state, it's the local storage for your component. So now let's say you have multiple components and you have to pass some data from one component to another. So let's say you have to pass this counter from one component to another. So how can you do that? So for that, we have a term called props, which is also called properties. So what props helps us to, send the data from one component to another. And let's see how we can do it. Okay. So let's create another component. So I'll add a file and I'll give it a name called counter.js. Okay. And uh, it should be class based component. Yeah. And okay, so now what I can do is that I have to, let's write some text here so that we can have a look how it works. So this is a counter component. Okay, so this is the text. Now now if you go over here, you cannot see that text. If you can if you refresh it, you cannot see it because we haven't imported it in our app yet. So to import this, to see this component, the counter component, what we have to do is that we have to import it in our app.js, which is the main entry point of our app. So to import it, what we have to do, we just have to write the import keyword, the name of our component, from, and give it a path. So the path to our component, which is counter. Okay, now to use this, what we'll do is that we'll go to our JSX, we'll add uh, angle braces, we'll write the name, and we'll it should be self-closing. Okay, so this is how you import a component in your app.js. So if I save it, now I'm able to see the text. Okay, so this is how we can import. And now let's say that whenever I click in this particular button, the value gets updated here, not in our app.js component. So this particular h1 should be in some other component. Okay. So how we can do that? So let's see that. So okay. So here, how to pass props. So to pass the props, we have to give it a name. So let's say our name, the name of our prop is count. Okay, and we have to give it a value. So what we have to pass is the state. So this dot state dot counter. Okay, and everything must be in the curly braces, right? Now this is fine. If you go here, for now let's just remove this because we don't have any state, and let's write some text counter, and yeah, so it is working fine. We are saying counter. Now we have passed this count in our counter component, but how to access this? How to access this count? So to access this, okay. So before we continue, let's have a look at the today's code. So this is the code for today. You can screenshot it. You can write it somewhere. We have only 1 minute. Okay. So we have passed a prop, a property from our app component to our counter component, which is this dot state dot counter. And what we have to do is that when we click on a button, our it should update our counter and it should be visible in our counter app. So how to access this count? How to access this counter state? So to access this counter state, we have a so if you have seen that for accessing the state, we use this dot state dot counter, and to access the prop, so we have this dot props dot the name of your props. So in our case, our name of our prop is count. This is the name of our prop, and this is the value of it. Okay. So to access it, what we need to do is we need to curly braces, and we need to write this dot props dot count. And if you go here, yeah, now we can see 0, right? Now this is coming from another component, not from the app.js. But when we click on a button which is on app.js, the counter should get updated in our another component which is counter. Okay, so let's test it. So when I click, it is working fine. So it is working just fine with another component as well. So this is how props work. This is how you pass props from one component to another. So now we have seen what are props, what is state, what is JSX, and we have used a class-based component to write our components. So how you can define a class-based component? You have to write a keyword called class, the name of your class. Okay, so what is this? This refers to the current object. So to access the properties, like to access the properties of this class, so the methods which are props, the state. So if we need to access this, so we have to write this. So this refers to the current object. You can it's a really uh, uh, different thing. It's like the most, what we can say, uh, I'm not getting that word. So you can read about this in some article. I'll share the article with you. But for now, just think of this as it is used to access the props and the state for this particular class. Okay, and okay, so we have used class-based components. So for creating a class-based component, we can write a class keyword. We can have to write the name of our class. We need to extend it with the component class, which is coming from React, and we have to use a render method which returns some JSX. So this is how you can create a class-based component. Now let's say we want to create a functional component. So there are two types of components we can create in React, which is a class-based and functional-based, state or stateless. Okay, so this is called stateful components. Since it has state, you can use state in class-based, and we have stateless components, which is called functional components. But and it is called stateless because we were unable to use state in functional components, but it is possible now with the help of hooks. We'll learn hooks tomorrow. What are hooks and how do we use it? So to create a functional component, what we need to do is that let's create a file called functional.js, and okay, and to create a functional component, it is same as the class-based component, but it is a function, it is not a class. So RFC, if I write over here, so this is a functional component in React. Okay. So as you can see, if we compare if we compare it with our class-based component, so we have React import from here. We are importing React from here. We are writing class here and extending the component class, but we don't write anything. We don't extend anything. We have a render method here, but we don't have any render method here. And inside that render, we return something. So yeah, here we return something. So the difference here is that we don't extend any component class, and we don't have any render method. So it automatically renders. It doesn't need any render method to render. Okay, so this is the difference between functional and class based. Other differences are we can use state here. for using state in functional component, we have to use some hooks, which we'll learn tomorrow. So if I write this is a functional component, and it will work just fine as the class based component. So to see this component, we have to import it in our app.js. So let's import it. Import functional from functional. Okay, and we have to call it, and it should work fine. Yeah, this is a functional component and it is working fine. So this is like the basics of React. We have seen what is npm, how do we use create react app, and what are class based components, what are functional components, how to use how to use state, how to handle the on change event, on click event, how to pass props, how to import other components. uh, so this is all for today, as we are out of time. So if you have any doubts, uh, please ask. You can ask it to me. And for tomorrow, we'll be going deep, doing deep into React, and we'll start with our